You're watching BlackCoffeePoet.com. I'm Jorge Antonio Vallejos. I'm here with Wanda Whitebird, and I'm so honored. And this is the beginning of a week where we are highlighting the rally that is going to be happening tomorrow, which is February 14th, to bring awareness to the violence that's happening against Aboriginal women in Canada. But we're going to be talking about many forms of violence in this video. Wanda Whitebird has been involved with many things. She's a grandmother in the community here, the Aboriginal community in Toronto, and we are honored to have you here, her here on BlackCoffeePoet.com. Thank you for joining us, Wanda.
Thanks for inviting me.
Awesome. So maybe we can talk a little bit about the history that has brought on this violence that we are highlighting and protesting tomorrow. You were talking about the Indian Act a little bit and that form of violence against Aboriginal people.
Well, I mean, I find the Indian Act to create it, especially with women, it created, if a woman married a non-native man, she had to move away from her family and move into the community. And so, I mean, that was, a very traumatic thing for a woman to do. And yet a man would marry a woman and bring her home if he was non-native. So, I mean, of course that changed. It would be sort of Bill C-31 in 1985. But now we have an influx of people who are coming home, and coming home to find out about our traditions and culture because they've been so isolated. Yeah. So, not good.
Okay. Yes, and you mentioned Bill C-31.
Yeah. We know, which was the reinstatement of women back to the reserve if the reserve would accept you, if you got to go back, or you'd be on a general list. So the whole fact that we're the only people in Canada that have to be carded to people to believe who we are. So unless you don't have treaty rights or status rights, then you're not considered to be an Indian in this country. Although in the Constitution it says Métis, Inuit, and First Nations. So First Nations people are people who hold status. Métis people, they haven't decided yet what that means in the Constitution, and then of course the Inuit who live in Labrador and, in the northern part of Canada. So, but it hasn't even, yet that, so we identify ourselves that way. So when we go looking for another Native person, you ask them where they're from, and they go, what reserve are you from? And yet they might have light skin, and then it's like, we won't accept them because they haven't lived on a reserve or they're not Indian enough, and that creates so much hurt in that individual. I met a woman last night at a full moon ceremony. It was really kind of neat because we were talking about that thing, and when she felt safe enough to speak at the end, she said that she was adopted and her father was adopted. So basically, when they went back, they found out that her grandmother was Blackfoot. I mean, it was phenomenal that she could find that information out after both her dad being an adopted child and her being an adopted child, right? And be able to find those things out, and she had enough courage to come to the circle. But there are some places that they may not accept it that she's not Indian enough. And so where do you draw a line? And then there's the incident in, where you draw the line is the incident of teaching the people our ways, and don't have an answer for that. People come with you for good hearts, with good hearts and respect. Then we need to be able to understand we're saying things that are not hurtful to them, because words hurt worse than knives.
Yeah, violence comes in so many forms: words, policies, physical.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, yes, you were talking about earlier a little bit about people raised off reserve, and you just mentioned that a little bit. What's the situation of that now? It's we're 2012. A lot of people live in cities, and
Well, a lot, second generation are living in cities, and so, my son was raised here in Toronto for the duration of his life. He only knows Toronto, you know, and we're looking at the friendship center movement in the country, right, in the cities, when they felt that was, what, 35 years ago they started up, and it was like, even maybe longer, I'm not sure. But maybe that's something we could look up. And so they're in all the cities in Canada because Native people were migrating to the city. And now what we find is those of us who cut our teeth at friendship centers across the country, for me it was the one in Halifax and the people in Toronto, that we went to the center Is that it?
No.
Oh my goodness.
For the laughter here on
Oh yeah,
blackcoffeeport.com.
yeah. I just not sure what the hand signals meant. Yeah. So what was I saying?
Cutting your teeth at the
And,
Friendship
yeah,
Center.
and the political movement and standing up for our rights. It's our children's children now that are at the friendship centers, and the programs that we fought for are serving our grandchildren. You know, so you can see the progress of Native people in the city. You know, and so you know it's not just one generation anymore. It's two and three. You know, and so I always think of the people who are out there that may not go to a friendship center, may not go to a Native organization, who are Native but don't want to come because they're afraid. You know, they're afraid of those stereotypes. They're afraid of so many things that they need to, you know, where they need to come home.
So how can that violence be stopped so they feel the welcoming of coming back home?
I think one way is that, you know, when we talk, we need to really think about what we're saying, because you know I've learned that in the last few years myself. You know that, you know, especially with two-spirited individuals, you know, and I have some, you know, friends who are really amazing, have taught me and been really accepting of the fact that I'm sometimes thoughtless in the things that I say because I'm a heterosexual and I come from a heterosexual framework, man and woman. You know, and I've learned to come from a different place where there's transgendered. You know, not to look at, well, boys can play with dolls and Barbie dolls, and you know, because they'll learn to look after kids, their babies correctly, right? So I've had to learn and think about the things that I say, so that they don't hurt people. And I would hope that while I'm talking or doing a ceremony, or is that if I have said something to offend someone, I'd really like for them to tell me, because I'm not up on everything, you know. And the best thing is communication from the heart. And so if, you know, you're saying things that are offensive to people, that it's like harm reduction. You know, I'm a philosopher. I mean, I totally believe in harm reduction. You know, and so so that means people by choice. And all we do is lessen the harm that someone does. So a car seat is harm reduction. A raincoat is harm reduction. A bike helmet is harm reduction. So equate it to that is clean needles, clean kits, those things. And that's love. It's just making sure that people have the things they need to be safe.
You talked about labels and stuff, and this, you know, Taggart, who's helping us here, mentioned about, you know, making language more accessible, and you have an issue with all these social work diagnoses. Can you go into that a bit in that form of violence against Aboriginal peoples?
Well, I don't even understand some of the times that I'm talking with social workers and people who have wanting to describe things. And one of those could be lateral violence, which is, you know, a key word in our community and our healing process. But when we say it to someone, they may not understand that word, you know. And so a lot of time when you talk to people and they don't understand their words and they don't have that self-confidence to say they don't, they'll feel like they're stupid, so they won't ask. You know, so you have to make sure that person is engaged with you. You know, so we use the term lateral violence, and somebody came back and asked us what it was. You know, you don't know what that is? You know, for us, it's an everyday word, right? It's almost like you hear it every day. Well, that was in the 90s, so I'm dating myself. Anyway, you know, and so it's like, so what is it? It's the dad hits the mom hits the kid, and the kid hits a dog. And then the dog bites another dog. And they go, oh, okay. So they get an idea of what lateral violence is. And so when you're oppressed people, like we are, coming from a genocide of you know, horrendous acts in this country that's going on, same today, it hasn't changed. And that you come from that same shared history, you're born as an oppressed person. You know, you're born as a person that might not believe that you have any use to this country, but you know, you don't even have access to clean water. So you don't have anything to be proud of, and that's what we're trying to change. You know, but when our children, both men and women, are growing into that, the behaviors that they seek out and the ways that they hurt and then hurt someone else is violence and painful.
So you mentioned a key word just now, and it's a word that is contested. I agree with what you just said. There is a genocide going on. That's how this nation was started. And you've played key roles and continue to play key roles in combating that genocide. You are part of Undayan. You work on the front lines. You also worked for P4W. You did work in prison for women. Can you talk a little bit about the work that you do and why you do it and how things have changed over the years?
I don't know if they've had.
Okay.
I mean, when you reach this stage of life, and you look back, I'm not sure they have changed. They're different.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, I might say that it's a little better, but I don't think they've changed. So, back when I was saying the friendship centers and back in the day, as my son would say, that, I started to work in the prison system with men, and we argued and fought for traditional programs and sweat lodges and traditional healing programs implemented within the correctional system. And we did that, but now you wouldn't notice that because what's happened is there's staff in the institutions. I mean, our native liaison people are no longer community people, they work for corrections. So, it's just a different way that they can work. And then our traditional people, I don't know. Our traditional people don't always understand um, the dynamics of transgendered, bisexual men who have sex with men. They don't always understand that because they've never heard it. They've never heard things around HIV and how it's transmitted. And they're not, and so our movement has become total abstinence about drugs and alcohol. And I mean, I think that's understandable for someone who's conducting ceremonies or, but for someone who's trying to find their path, I don't think it needs to be an absolute. And so, we, for instance, every day we call people coming into the institution elders because that's how we could get them in. They might not have been an elder, really. They might have just been a drummer or singer or a traditional dancer, somebody who attended sweat, somebody who was on the vote. But the way to get them into the institution was we hadn't defined an elder yet. So everybody was under an elder, which that was good then, but now it's created that everybody's an elder, and and you can see the effects of that we've got to go back. There are elders in our community, there are traditional teachers in our community, and we should not ever be holding them on pedestals. They're within that circle, and we look after each other. And so in that circle we see all the generations of Native people. But the changes, I don't know if there's been any. More people are talking about it, but I still talk to women who live in abusive situations who can't leave. I still see, the murdered and missing women, and I know that's our rallies tomorrow. And every day on Facebook, I see a little girl, a young woman. Even men are now murdered and missing. There are 5 of them in BC, all missing from BC, that they're looking for. And so they're, why are people being murdered and why are people missing? And why aren't we looking for them? And that all that stuff around the farm, and I mean, what a horrible, horrible thing to have happen. That the police department didn't care enough to look. And they didn't. I mean, you have to admit it. I mean, once we admit it, we can announce it and denounce it and move on. I mean, we have this big inquiry about what happened because they want to prove that it didn't happen. Well, it did happen. They know the man's been convicted. So, they're always having these inquiries that cost millions of dollars, and they spend all these monies, and nothing ever happens. When that money could go into programming, it could be, in finding those women.
Mm-hmm.
So have things changed? I don't know. I have a daughter now who has a daughter. I have a granddaughter, and think that it's changed in a sense in her life that she would never accept violence in her life because her mother would, and so, but and she speaks out, and she's, so things have changed within a bit. I'll give you that.
Okay.
But we still got a lot of work to do.
Yeah, and I'd call it an epidemic with, and the numbers are contested. When I first started coming to the rally, which started in Toronto, this is the 7th year the rally is happening?
Yep, it's the 7th year.
This is the 7th year, and that back then the number that was being used was 500. and then I started hearing 650, and last year 800. But I was talking with certain people, and they're like, no, none of those numbers are right. It's thousands. We really don't know what the number is. Can you speak to that?
I mean, what is so important about the number? I mean, that's true. They're starting to debate and they want proof. One is enough.
I agree with you.
You know what I mean? So, if it's 500, if it's 800, if it's 1,000, it doesn't matter. It's more than one, and we know that. And so we know families who have missing daughters. We know families who have missing cousins, aunties. You know, they're gone for months at a time. They're not come home. Whatever the scenario is, and it's not just in our communities. Like I said, you notice missing women now a lot since we started to speak up.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like it doesn't happen. Everybody wants to. It's the same that you live in a community and the neighbors having domestic violence and you mind your own business, and you're taught that, oh, never mind, shut the door.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, shut the door. We don't. It's none of our business. Meanwhile, whoever's getting beat next door, it is your business, but we don't want to make it our business, right? So it's like they want to hide it. One is too many. And there's a lot. I mean, I sat with a circle of women and families in Ottawa, and the pain was atrocious. I mean, the things that they shared and things that they happened to them when they were dealing with people in roles of power. It was awful. Their pain of never being able to see their granddaughter again, but never being able to say goodbye, and never being able to lay to rest. I mean, we have traditions and culture that speaks to the way that we take care of those that are passed on. Never being able to do that, how do you heal that? You don't. You can't heal that. What you need to do is get motivated, work on it, and know still to be kind. And know that you don't want to, you need to be kind. Don't hurt yourself, don't hurt with someone else, but I don't think it's something you'll ever forget.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you said something that was really important, the thing of this minding your own business. I've seen on the news several times when someone is murdered and then the neighbors are interviewed on the news and they're like, oh, we knew it was happening, now we wish we would have done something. But it's too late now.
Well, it's too late, but I mean, it's always, and the other beef is that when something's going down, it's always the negative. Like, they print our men and women are dying in prison as well. And so what they do is they say, oh yeah, so-and-so is a murderer and he died in prison. Well, why do they have to keep, so as long as they can degrade the person that has been murdered, then we can feel better about it.
Yeah.
Like, I'll never feel better about it. We don't have a death sentence in this country, so they tell me. But it's not true, we do. There are people who have gone to prison and never come out. They've come home in body bags, so we do have a death sentence.
Good point. And the highest incarceration rate in this country, in case viewers don't know, is Aboriginal people. My understanding is that 25% of the prison population across the country is Aboriginal, and in some provinces it's 70%, 60% Aboriginal prison population. So that genocide, that extension of colonialism is a real deal, but nobody wants to talk about that really, except people who, the families and the activists, but of course,
But
no one talks about that in the media or the government.
Well, they want to be denial, right? I mean, I don't have all the statistics because I deal with realness, so sometimes I can't keep those in my head, right? But I know that they tell me that the genocide of the Jewish people during the Second World War is the same numbers in this country, and yet it doesn't count, because Christopher Columbus, who we don't believe in, came to discover a country, which he didn't. He really came to visit. When he got here, he was, really drunk and dirty, and he raped women. It was horrible, the things. But they let him in, and we looked after him. We cleaned him up. And then what? They keep coming. They keep coming. And the smallpox blanket is real. Like, this is not real.
Mm-hmm.
This is not stories being made up. These are stories that can be proven. I mean, you look at the Wild West and how many, some of the Western movies that Hollywood has done. It's real. They kill Indian people for their land. And I was watching one of the other things online, and I don't know if it was Russell Means or the other guy. Anyway, Desmond Banks. But what he said was the War of 1812 was fought by the peoples of the Americas because Henry VIII didn't want to give up the land that he had treated to the native people, and they wanted the land. So
Mm-hmm.
rather than stay with Henry VIII, they created that war, broke away from England or the crown or whatever, so that they could take America away.
Mm.
So it's always about more and more and more, right?
So, you've been involved in this rally that's happening tomorrow for 6 years now. Year seven is tomorrow. Can you talk to us how you got involved and what you want to see come out of these rallies that are happening across the country now for the missing and murdered Aboriginal women?
For me, what it is a chance for me to say that I promised 7 years ago when we were standing outside with a small group of people to the spirits of those women that I would be standing at Toronto Police Headquarters on February the 14th, because they're never going to be forgotten. I mean, it's not going to be swept under the rug. That was a date that the women on the east side had picked. That's my understanding from people who come over here to teach that to us. And so that's why we chose that date. And we said we would be there to offer strawberries and water, to have a ceremony, to be able to have an opportunity for the families of the missing women to come together to pray. To bring I don't know. It's just to do it, from your heart, so you'll feel better, like you're not hopeless. Because in a situation when there's nothing you can do, you feel hopeless and helpless. And so reality is there's always something you can do. Because the power of prayer, there isn't anything more powerful than that. There isn't anything more powerful than the power of a ceremony. So you can do those things. And we can all do those things. You don't have to be good enough to pray. You can pray. And so there's that whole, yeah, everyone can pray to the higher power, to the universe, to whoever. So people tell me, well, I don't believe in anything, and I say, well, the only thing I'm going to work on is I really hope you believe in yourself, because if you believe in yourself, you have faith, and then you can believe in anything.
What do you want to see from the allies to the Aboriginal community? Because it's a mixed crowd that comes out. Sometimes it's really small, sometimes it's bigger. What message do you have for allies who come out or are thinking of coming out?
Come and join us and pray. I mean, everyone has a spirit, everyone has a heart, everyone come together and help those families with the murdered and missing women. Stop if you. They always ask how you can help. This is one way you can help. Come on out, stand out in the cold with us as we pray. And respect us. And come with good things in your hearts. Not to come to take anything away, but come and be with us. And lend your voices to who? To creation.
Yeah, and this is a lot of people think that this is just a BC problem. It's a Canada-wide problem, or we can say North America-wide. We don't like the rally is for women here, but it's even all the Americas. But this is people think of BC as where the problem is. No, it's all across
You
the
know,
country.
yeah, it's not just a BC problem. I mean, women disappear everywhere,
Hmm.
and women live in violence everywhere. You know, and I tell people that I think it's important to remember there's only one way here, and that's through the womb of woman. And it's about time you recognize that your journey to this earth comes from woman, and the way that you treat women will speak to how your life will be lived, because that's the channel that you came through. And so respect for that channel has to be there. But as you can see, women are not treated like they should be in this country, because they've forgotten where they come from. I think their mothers need to go and talk to them.
Yeah, we're trying to bring awareness here around the women who have gone missing, have been murdered, and some people get more attention than others. For example, Jane Creba, it was a horrible thing that happened to her on Yonge Street, but why is it that one person gets so much attention and then hundreds of others are swept under the rug? So there's an epidemic happening. It's a huge problem. Please come out and support. Please educate yourselves on this topic. Watch this video, share it, but there's so many other resources. And talk to people like Wanda, there's many people in the different Aboriginal communities across this country who have a lot of knowledge. There's books that have been written, there's groups. So please make yourself aware and spread the word and start saying, no, this is not acceptable. It's not acceptable. You know, these are women. They're human, they're women, just like anybody else.
Well, and that's how we all get here.
Exactly.
So, you know, if you destroy women, how are you going to get here? You know, how is our future children going to get here? You know, our future is in our children, so, you know, we carry the men as well as the women. You know, so. But something interesting, my son is in the hip hop culture and, you know, the rap stuff anyway. Told me JC had a daughter, and he's not using the word bitch in his rap music because he's referring to his daughter. So that's changing, and what it took was a man to have a daughter.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he may have just whatever that, you know, the things, the awful things that they say about women in that genre. It took him having a daughter to change it.
So we've talked about a lot of forms of violence, policy, different forms of genocide, incarceration, physical violence, silence, where people don't speak out. There's different forms of violence happening in this country. I hope that this was a video that really helped you understand things more. I learned a lot. Thank you very much for joining us, Wanda. It was an honor to have you on blackcoffeepoet.com. And please, whatever city you are in Canada, tomorrow, February 14th, there's probably a rally going on. Please show up, show your support. And thank you for joining us on blackcoffeepoet.com. This is start to a week where we're bringing awareness about this violence. Susan Blight is the guest reviewer this week. She's an Anishinaabe woman. She's reviewing this book from the early 80s, Fireweed, that's written by Native women and edited by Native women. It's a feminist journal that no longer exists, sadly. Canada took the funding away. On the Wednesday, there will be an interview with Bridget Tolley. She is part of the Families of the Sisters in Spirit movement, and she's gone across the country to bring awareness about her mother who was killed by a cop and all the women who have gone missing and been murdered. And on the Friday, there will be poetry by Janet Marie Rogers, Jamaias DaCosta, and hopefully Ryan Redcorn. So thank you very much. We'd like to thank Taggart also for being the camera person. We would like to thank the Toronto Rape Crisis Center for giving us this space, and for Wanda Whitebird for giving us her time, her knowledge, her energy. And thank you for joining us, and please spread this video and friend me on Facebook. I am Black Coffee Poet and Black Coffee Poet on Twitter. Check out the Black Coffee Poet YouTube channel for more great interviews like this one, roundtables, and poetry. And please just stay tuned in to blackcoffeepoet.com. Peace out.